December 1st, 1997. A quiet practice at the Golden State Warriors facility suddenly turned into one of the most infamous moments in NBA history. Out of nowhere, Latrell Sprewell, a four-time All-Star and the face of the franchise, lunged at his own head coach, P.J. Carlesimo, wrapping his hands around his neck. Teammates froze. Reporters couldn't believe it, and the entire league would never look at Sprewell the same way again. This wasn't just a fight. It wasn't just frustration boiling over. It became a turning point in how the NBA dealt with discipline, image, and the fragile balance between player and coach. Was this the act of a hot-headed star who lost control, or a sign of deeper cracks within the system? Today, we're going to revisit the infamous choke incident, a story that still haunts the NBA decades later. Before we dive into the incident itself, we need to understand who Latrell Sprewell was and why this moment shocked the basketball world so much. Sprewell was not just another player, he was a star, an electric shooting guard with incredible athleticism, relentless energy, and a fearless attitude on the court. Drafted by the Golden State Warriors in 1992, he quickly became the face of the franchise, a three-time All-Star by 1997, and someone fans believed could carry the team into a new era. But Sprewell was also known for his fiery temper and clashes with authority. His intensity was both his greatest strength and his biggest weakness. The Warriors at that time were in chaos, struggling to find stability, and their new head coach, P.J. Carlesimo, was known for his hard-nosed, often abrasive style. He demanded discipline, he pushed his players hard, and he had a reputation for yelling in practices. For some, that was motivation. For Sprewell, it was gasoline on fire. Imagine a talented but volatile star colliding with a strict and confrontational coach in a franchise already drowning in dysfunction. You can almost see where this is going, right? It was December 1st, 1997, a regular Warriors practice that would go down in NBA history for all the wrong reasons. During a routine drill, Coach P.J. Carlesimo was yelling at his players, demanding sharper passes and greater effort. When he turned his attention to Sprewell, he told him to pass the ball better, and in his usual sharp tone, added that he should put more effort into the drill. That was the spark that lit the fire. Sprewell, already frustrated and fed up with what he saw as disrespect, walked up to Carlesimo, and at first it looked like he was just going to exchange words. But then it happened. In front of his teammates, in front of staff, Sprewell suddenly grabbed his coach by the throat with both hands and started choking him. Reports say it lasted around 10 to 15 seconds before players and assistants rushed in to separate them. Can you imagine the chaos in that gym? Teammates screaming, staff trying to pull him away, the head coach gasping for breath as one of his own stars literally had his hands wrapped around his neck. It didn't end there though, because Sprewell left the practice floor only to come back later and throw a punch at Carlesimo before being restrained again. Think about that for a moment. This wasn't a heated exchange of words. This was physical assault during practice. A player attacking his own coach, something unheard of in professional sports at that level. The aftermath of that moment was instant and brutal. News spread like wildfire, first through the Warriors organization and then across the entire sports world. The NBA could not ignore what had just happened. Within hours, Sprewell was suspended for 10 games by the team, and then the league stepped in with one of the harshest punishments ever seen. The NBA suspended him for the entire season, 82 games, without pay. That meant losing nearly $7 million in salary, an astronomical amount at the time. The Warriors also decided to terminate his contract altogether, effectively cutting ties with their star player. Imagine the shock to fans in Oakland who just days before had been cheering for him. The media pounced on the story. Every sports outlet and newspaper was running the headline that an NBA player had literally choked his coach. Late-night hosts joked about it. Analysts debated whether Sprewell should ever be allowed back in the league, and sponsors quickly backed away. It was not just a suspension, it was a public shaming. And for weeks, the only thing people could talk about was the choke. Think about it. This was the late 90s. The NBA was still polishing its image after the Jordan era, trying to expand globally. And suddenly, here was a scandal that looked more like a street fight than professional basketball. What happened next turned the choke incident from just a sports scandal into a full-blown legal drama. Sprewell did not accept the punishment quietly. He challenged both the NBA and the Golden State Warriors through arbitration, claiming that the suspension and contract termination were excessive and unfair. The players' union got involved because this was about more than just one player. It was about setting a precedent for how much power the league had over its athletes. After months of hearings and headlines, the arbitrator ruled partly in Sprewell's favor. The season-long suspension was reduced to 68 games, still one of the longest in NBA history, but enough to show that the league could not take absolute control without question. More importantly, Sprewell won a major victory when the arbitrator reinstated his contract, overturning the Warriors' decision to terminate it. Imagine the message this sent, that even in the face of violence, a player still had rights that the league and teams could not simply erase. The case sparked debates about labor law, about whether athletes were employees with protections or commodities at the mercy of billion-dollar franchises. It forced fans, journalists, and even other players to ask hard questions. Was the punishment really about discipline and safety, or was it about protecting the NBA's brand and control? Sprewell became not only a villain in the eyes of many, but also a strange kind of symbol for players fighting back against authority. When Sprewell finally returned to the court after his suspension, the entire basketball world was watching. Every dribble, every shot, every stare was under the microscope. Fans were divided. Some booed him relentlessly, seeing him as a disgrace to the game, while others cheered because they admired his talent and maybe even respected that he fought the system. Sprewell's game had not disappeared during the suspension. He was still explosive, still a scoring machine, still the type of player who could change the energy of a match instantly. And yet the shadow of the choke followed him everywhere. Reporters constantly asked about it, rival fans shouted it from the stands, and even teammates had to answer questions about whether they trusted him. What does it do to an athlete when every success is stained by one moment of rage? Sprewell played with a chip on his shoulder, almost as if he had to prove he belonged despite the scandal. His later trade to the New York Knicks gave him a new stage, Madison Square Garden, one of the biggest spotlights in sports. Against all odds, he became a key piece of their playoff run in 1999, helping the Knicks reach the NBA Finals. Think about the irony. A player who once nearly lost everything for an act of violence was now being celebrated as the face of an underdog team on the biggest stage. The crowd embraced him, the narrative shifted, but deep down, the incident never disappeared. Do you think a player can ever truly escape a scandal of this magnitude, or will it always linger, no matter how much success follows? The long-term impact of the Sprewell incident reached far beyond one player and one team. For the NBA, it was a wake-up call that discipline could not be treated lightly. The league introduced stricter codes of conduct, harsher punishments, and made it clear that violent behavior, even behind closed doors at practice, would not be tolerated. This was not only about protecting coaches and players, but also about protecting the brand of the NBA, which was becoming a global business. Sponsors and media partners needed reassurance that the league stood for professionalism and not chaos. Sprewell became almost a cautionary tale used to remind young players about the consequences of losing control. At the same time, the case sparked debates about player frustration and power dynamics between athletes and coaches. Was Sprewell simply an uncontrollable personality, or was he also a product of a system that pushed players to the breaking point? The truth is probably somewhere in between, and that is what keeps this story alive decades later. Even today, when people talk about discipline issues in the NBA, the name Latrell Sprewell still comes up. Do you think the league learned the right lessons, or did it simply tighten control without addressing the deeper causes of conflict between athletes and authority figures? Looking back, the Latrell Sprewell choke incident is more than just a shocking headline from the 1990s. It is a reminder of how fragile the balance can be between passion and control, between frustration and professionalism. It shows us that athletes, no matter how talented, are still human beings dealing with pressure, ego, and conflict, and sometimes those emotions explode in ways that change careers forever. The NBA has worked hard to distance itself from that kind of chaos, but the memory of this moment still lingers as a warning of what happens when boundaries are crossed. Some fans still defend Sprewell, arguing that he was pushed to the limit, while others see his actions as completely unacceptable. What do you think? Was this simply an unforgivable outburst, or was it a symptom of something deeper in the culture of the league at the time? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this is a debate that will never truly go away. And if you enjoy exploring these stories that shaped NBA history, make sure to subscribe to Behind the Backboard so you don't miss the next one.